Hello and welcome to Jewish Repertory Theater's fourth interview in a series of 5 with playwrights featured in our digital stage reading series. My name is Adam Yellen, and I'm an administrative associate, actor, and director with the Jewish Repertory Theater. And it is my honor and pleasure to be joined tonight by Bo-Jest playwright James Sherman and JRT artistic director Saul Elkin. JRT's staged reading of Bo-Jest will premiere March 11th and run through March 31st digitally. And for tickets and more information, please visit www.jewishrepertorytheater.com. There is a link at the bottom of the description for anyone who is interested in taking a look. But before we get into our conversation, here is a little more on Saul and James's distinguished careers. So James Sherman began his professional career as a writer and performer with the Second City in Chicago and received an MFA degree from Brandeis University. He has written 13 plays, premiered at the Tony Award-winning Victory Gardens Theater in Chicago. His many plays have been published and produced by theaters throughout the United States, as well as Canada, Mexico, Australia, South America, England, Germany, Austria, Turkey, South Africa, Australia, China, and Korea. And in the summer of 2006, James wrote and directed the movie version of this play, Bo-Jest, starring Lainey Kazan, Seymour Cassell, and Robin Cohen, and that is available currently on DVD. James currently teaches playwriting and improvisation at Columbia College of Chicago and DePaul University, and he is a member of the Dramatists Guild of America. And of course, next, Saul Elkin, who is the co-founder of the Jewish Repertory Theater of Western New York and has appeared in and directed many JRT productions. He is the founder and artistic director of Shakespeare in Delaware Park and a former chair of the University at Buffalo's theater department. He began acting as a child in small children's theater school for Jewish children. His first show was at the age of 7, cast as the lead in a play by the founder of the Yiddish Art Theater, Maurice Schwartz. He continued to work as both an actor and director for the stage as well as in television. His acting and directing credits include over 250 theater performances, film and television, and several regional and seasonal theater companies. He holds a BA and an MFA from Columbia and a PhD from Carnegie Mellon University. He came to Buffalo, New York in 1969 and began teaching theater at the University at Buffalo, where he soon became chairman of the theater department from 1971 to 1985. He founded Shakespeare in Delaware Park in 1976 and co-founded the JRT in 2002. And just a note before I hand the reins over to James and Saul, if you are watching tonight and have any questions for them, please feel free to type those into the YouTube comments and we can try and address those towards the end of the conversation. So without further ado, I will hand over the reins. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the conversation.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you very much. James, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm glad we're doing this. I suppose the obvious first question is, how are you dealing with the pandemic?
I'm okay. You know, I got my shots. I got my second vaccination last week.
So did I.
Yeah. And I've been teaching online, of course, as many of us are. The hardest thing for me is I've never gone this long in my adult life without going to a theater. You know,
that's a killer, isn't it? I've had the same experience. I mean, I miss the theater. I'm a movie fan. I miss that.
Sure, I've seen. You know, I get through a lot of days just watching Turner Classic Movies. But you know, I'm in Chicago, and so we're very proud of our theater scene here. Not only because there's great theater, but there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
So of course,
there's a lot here too. I mean, Buffalo's an extraordinary town. I think there's an organization called the Buffalo Theater Alliance, and there are some 20 theaters that belong to it, and many of them fully professional, equity contracts, and so there's an awful lot of theater. There's a lot of choice. Like Chicago.
I'm just hoping as things, you know, I'm starting to get optimistic. Hopefully, before too long, we'll be back at it.
Yeah, I am too. I see the reports more and more saying that things are getting somewhat better, and I think they are. So I want to tell you, James, we're delighted that we're doing this play again. It's our second shot. And interestingly, the woman who's playing Miriam, Darlene Hummert, played it in the first time around. And we also did God of Isaac, and she played the Jewish mother in that.
Oh, great.
She is our go-to Jewish mother, although she's Irish.
Oh, really? Oh, great.
But she's a wonderful character actress, and she's done other things with us as well. So let me begin by asking you, how did the play begin for you? How did Beau Geste begin for you?
Well, it's a long time ago,
I know it is. 25 years, maybe?
Well, it's 25 years since it first opened, but, since I first started writing it, it's almost 30 years.
Wow.
It was in the mid 80s. I had already done The God of Isaac with the Victory Gardens Theater in Chicago, and that went well. And so I was very fortunate because Victory Gardens became my artistic home for 25 years. So just about all the plays that I wrote premiered there. And, it always takes more than just one idea for me to say, oh, I think this might be a play I want to spend some time.
Did it come out of a personal experience, maybe?
Oh, they all do.
I know the play is, for me, when I first read it, I said, well, that's me. That's my life.
Yeah. And that's very gratifying to hear that. It's also very gratifying when people come up to me and say, oh, that's my life. That's just like my family. And they're Jewish, or they might be Italian, or they might be Irish, or they might be African-American, so that's always very gratifying. And I think that's probably why people still like doing it. When you have a reputation for writing comedies, people often come up to you and go, oh, I have a story to tell you, and you just kind of collect those over time. And I actually did know a fellow. I was actually living in New York at the time and taking classes, and met a fellow who just over lunch one day told me a funny anecdote that he worked for an escort service. And
for heaven's sake.
One night he actually got hired to pretend to be this woman's boyfriend. And that's an interesting, funny story.
Yeah.
Now, of course, he only saw her once and never saw her again, and he thought that was a funny story from his point of view. But I was immediately fascinated by the woman who hired the escort, because I went, okay, there's something going on there that I find really interesting. That she felt that she had to hire somebody to pretend to be her boyfriend, to fool her parents. And
it's a wonderful concept. It really is.
Yeah.
And the first time that he arrives and meets her parents, I mean, it's an extraordinary scene. Yeah.
Yeah. It's and there are kind of classic precedents for it. But the other thing that was going on for me, and this is the personal part, is just me at that time in my life going through things, trying to work out my own life, and reading books like How to Make Peace with Your Parents, and so the issue of how to be honest and authentic with your parents,
right.
On the way there, we often do silly things, to protect ourselves.
We do indeed. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I just remember once, I was just taking summer classes in college, and I got bored and I dropped out. But I got up and kept going to school because I didn't want to tell my parents that I dropped out.
Oh,
I was like, deception.
It occurred to me at a point in my life, my parents were both immigrants, a wonderful old Jewish couple, but we didn't relate to each other very much. Once I started going to college, I found I had less and less to say to them, and they to me, although they were very loving. My father is now, they're both gone, but they were wonderfully supportive and wonderfully loving, but they knew very little about me, about my life at that point. They knew lots about me when I was a kid. So I connected with Abe and Miriam in the play. I mean, they seemed very much like lots of Jewish couples that I have known over the years.
Me too.
And I love it that the play has had the kind of widespread production history that it has. And have you seen it in other places, in other countries?
I have. It's been amazing. I saw it in Germany, which was really interesting.
You speak German?
It was in German. Yeah, no, I don't speak any German, but I know the play well enough. I mean,
of course.
And all of the laughs were in the right places. And last year, right before the shutdown, I got an email from a director in Warsaw, Poland. And he proposed to me an idea that I had never heard before. He wanted to take both Beau Geste and Just a Second and do them together in like one evening.
Uh-huh.
And because it's Poland, he showed me these set designs that were all very kind of Eastern European and expressionistic.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, well, sure, why not? And I gave him permission to do it. And they were in rehearsal when the shutdown happened. So I'm still hoping that's going to happen.
And then eventually you directed a film version of it, which I've seen.
Yeah.
Which was a much expanded version of the play, in a way.
Yeah. You know, there were always things that I wanted to do, like have a scene where Sarah has to take Bob to a synagogue, you know, for the bar mitzvah.
Right.
And see a little bit more of their life outside of Sarah's apartment. Honestly, it was harder to write the play to make it all take place in that one environment. But that was an interesting journey too. You know, the play did really well off Broadway in New York.
And, oh yes, I remember.
You know, and then it played in Los Angeles. And in my mind, I'm thinking, this is great. You know, I'm sure somebody's going to want the movie rights, and it's going to become a movie, and it's going to be like Big Fat Greek Wedding, and I'm going to make $1 zillion. And that didn't happen.
Dream on, Mr. Sherman.
Yeah. So the interesting thing, and I did talk to a lot of executives, and I won't go into the whole historical background of Hollywood about this, but they all said, "Oh, Jim, we love this play. It's so funny and it's so smart and so clever, but it's too Jewish." Even to this day, you think, "Oh, that's old Hollywood," but that was still what was going on.
That's wild.
And of course, it's Jewish executives that are saying this to me.
Oh, of course.
and some executive at Disney actually said to me, if you could just rewrite it and make it an Italian family, then it would be like Moonstruck, and then we could buy it. So I went, well, okay, I guess, you know, it's not going to happen. And then I got a letter from a fellow who had seen the play a couple of times. Like you, they had done the play once and it was so popular that they did it again a few years later. And he had a dream of being a movie producer. And it turned out the fellow was from Salt Lake City and he's a Mormon. So he didn't have a concept of.
There's an interesting concept.
Yeah. And there was something just about the play. Well, there are a number of things about the play that he really liked. You know, it's clean. It's, and I learned something about the Mormons, and there was a spirituality. They loved the scene of the Seder.
You know, it's interesting. The Steve Vaughn, who directed the first time we did it and is directing this time, is not Jewish, but he loves the ritual aspect of the play. He loves the Seder. For him, it's the ideal moment in the play. And I have to tell you something about that. In the first version, I played Abe, and we had Haggadahs all rigged so that we could follow it a little more easily. Mm-hmm. And one night I came on stage without my glasses, and I opened the Haggadah, and everybody sitting around the table, all the other actors, realized I had no. To this day, I don't know how I got through the Seder, but somehow my own memory of Seders in the play and somehow I got through it alive.
That's great.
It's interesting. I thought in the film was interesting, but I thought Leni Kazan is such a formidable actress. It became about her in a way.
that's a great way of describing her. I mean, she was a sweetheart, and it was wonderful to work with her. But yes, that's a good way of putting it. The other interesting thing was, once she came on board to do the film, she recommended, she was just old pals with Seymour Cassell, and I was all excited. My memory of Seymour Cassell was the first time I ever saw him in a movie was a Cassavetes film called Minnie and Moskowitz.
Oh, I saw that.
He played Seymour Moskowitz.
Yes.
So I figured he was Jewish, but he's not.
Of course not.
So I thought, oh, and I didn't realize it. And then we get to we're shooting the Seder scene. And if you go back and you look at the film, I had to kind of improvise on the set, because I gave him, I said all the prayers in a little cassette, but it wasn't going to sink in. That became obvious. So if you notice in the movie, we cut it so that he's never on camera when any of the prayers are being said.
Oh, that's funny.
So, because fortunately Robin and Laney, of course, and I can't remember, the Willie Garson, who played Joel, they're all Jewish, so they kept the scene going.
My memory of the night that I came on without my glasses was, I'm Jewish and I know the prayers and I can pronounce them well, but I didn't have them in the right order that night.
That's okay. It's all right.
So tell me, Jim, are you still connected with Victory Garden? Are you? I know they produce so many of your plays.
Yeah, not officially. My connection there was primarily based in my relationship with Dennis Acek, who was one of the founders, the artistic director there. So when he retired, I call it regime change. They brought in a whole new crew, but I'm still in touch with Dennis, and we've worked on some other projects together since then.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago's an extraordinary theater town. I mean, the theaters and the kind of work that's being done. And I'm curious to know if you're working on something new.
Yes, I am. I'm an old straight white guy, which means I'm really kind of out of fashion as far as theater is concerned. But
join the club.
Yeah, I am. I don't know if you know about the Ben Heck show.
I do. Yeah.
So I've been working on that and traveling around and doing that for the last few years. So I do have a screenplay in the works, and I have a new play in the works. That as soon as I have something ready to show, Saul, you'll know about it.
Yeah, I keep looking for something new from you, because I will jump right on it.
Great, I appreciate it.
I mean, we've been around for 18 years, and as I look at other Jewish theaters around the city, everybody's doing the same plays, more or less, and lots of people have done your plays, obviously. Yeah. We had a very good time with God of Isaac. It went very well. Our audiences loved it. We did From Door to Door, which I loved.
Oh, great.
And the three actresses who did it were just wonderful in it. I mean, it just blew me away what they found in, what seemed at first reading like a very simple idea, but it wasn't so simple. I thought it was really terrific. But yeah, we are looking for, we're looking for plays that connect to Jewishness, to the Jewish life, etc. So I'm looking for plays. I'm hoping that you'll write one soon and send it out to the world. So are you teaching now?
And I am teaching. I teach improvisation, so that's a challenge to do.
I would guess.
When we first started doing it,
Zoom improvisation.
Yeah. When we had to make the shift last year, it was a shock to the system. We've gotten kind of accustomed to it because a lot of us are doing it and we're sharing ideas, and so it's going along okay. But like I said, I'm pretty optimistic. I think in the fall we'll be back in the classroom.
I hope so. It feels like it's getting better. I mean, it's really tough. I mean, the Steve Vaughn, who directed this video version that we're doing, his wife teaches dance, and she's been teaching dance virtually.
Yeah.
How you do that, I don't know, but
Yeah, I have a friend who teaches stage combat, and somehow he's figured out how to do that online.
Steve also teaches stage combat.
Wow.
And apparently he's doing it, I mean, somehow online. It's tough. I mean, this virtual life that we're leading, it removes us from people. And I must say, however, that I'm doing more reading these days than I've done, and I can't remember how long. I mean, I'm just reading one book after another. Although, I'm happy to say that the Jewish Repertory Theater has a life. We've continued. We're doing these sort of staged readings, and we're selling them as a package. And we have a base audience that loves our stuff. And I think we have some 300 people who've signed up for the whole series, which is
Great.
Which is really terrific. And the thing that that I really love about doing things virtually is that our stuff is going out all over the world. I'm hearing that people are seeing our stuff in Europe and elsewhere in North America and in Canada, and I'm sure that's happening with your plays as well.
Sure, and I also think in Chicago, our local theater awards are called the Jeff Awards, and I also volunteer to be on the committee, and so I have associations with a lot of the theaters. And what you just said is very true. The theaters had to adapt and start doing this kind of an online experience. And I think that's going to continue, even when we do start going back to live theater, because as you say, you're reaching audience you never did before.
That's interesting because we've been talking about that too. We thought once we're back to opening the doors of our theater, and we have a lovely little theater, that at least perhaps once a season, we should video what we're doing and send it out to the world the way we're doing now,
Sure.
which I think is terrific. And we're hearing from people from everywhere who are seeing our stuff, who under no other circumstance would see our stuff. And I have to tell you too that my connection with the play began because I was directing it, not directing, but in it, playing Abe. But my daughter was playing Sarah, my real daughter.
Oh, how nice!
And there was a sweetness about that relationship that we had as father and daughter. A couple of seasons later, she played Cordelia to my Lear in the park. And there's a moment in the play where, she's comforting the aging and ill Lear that just blew me away. It still blows me away thinking about it all these years later. So I'm just trying to think. We are the only theater in Buffalo, I think, who are doing quite what we're doing, these stage readings. And I think when you see this version of Bojas, it's more than just a reading. And even though some of the actors have scripts in hand, you lose sight of that. And they're wearing shields over their faces, which is the only way that, the actors felt they would feel safe doing it, which is okay with us. Although
looking forward to seeing it. That's great. Yeah.
Interestingly, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's it. No, I think something popped up. I think Adam said there's some questions in the chat.
Oh, sure.
Do you see something?
Do you have a question? Hello.
Oh, okay. Do you want to read the question, Saul? I have it.
Yeah. I saw in your bio that you went to Illinois State University. I went to ISU grad school at Normal, 1968 to 69. Which ISU did you go to? Have you any rituals when writing, time of day you write, etc.?
Okay. I was at ISU in Normal, Illinois State University in Normal. I was there 72 to 74, and I was there as an actor. I really wanted to be an actor from the time I was like 9 years old.
It's my story too.
Yeah, and then I was home for the summer from college and got hired to work at the Second City, which was very exciting, and I was there for a few years. And then I still wanted to be an actor, so I went to graduate school at Brandeis, and then I moved to New York. And over the years, got a lot of encouragement to write, mostly from people who saw me act. So it was just kind of a natural progression. In terms of rituals, I can't say. I used to smoke. So that was connected to writing. So
I too have stopped.
yeah, I don't do that anymore. So it's not so much ritual in terms of the practice. The thing that most feeds my writing is having a due date. And that was another reason why I was so fortunate to have the artistic home with Victory Gardens Theater and Dennis Satchek, because it was nice to have somebody to call and say, so when you're going to have the script for me? So Saul, if you want to give me a due date for this new play I'm working on, that's great. I'll get it to you.
How about next fall?
I think we can talk. I think we can work that out.
I'm serious. I'd love to do a premiere of a new play, because I know that if you're looking for premieres, you could do them almost anywhere, but it would be wonderful for us.
Sure. Yeah,
and I'm making the offer sight unseen. I mean,
hey.
having no idea what you're thinking
Okay.
about.
Well, it's got Jewish content, and it's a
There
comedy.
you go. That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the operative phrase for the Jewish repertoire.
Here's a question. Are you currently working with the new Sarasota Jewish Theater? And I am not working with them directly, but like your theater, they're also doing a play of mine in a virtual setup, and they're doing door to door. And I should know the exact dates. It is coming up. So I guess if you just look online for
I will.
Theater.
Well, I love door to door. I love the play. I love the concept. And I love the idea that the actors were given a chance to sort of play through this life experience, sort of age as things went along. I think I see another question. Let me see if I can find it. You had a long career with Second City. Were there any interesting people you've worked with, and how has it improved or informed your writing?
Oh, yeah. Coincidentally, right before we started doing this, I was on another Zoom call being interviewed about my experiences working at the Second City. So I was just talking about.
Oh, my goodness. Well, tell us.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the main thing is I used to go to the Second City when John Belushi and Bill Murray and David Rashi were in the company. And this was before there was any such thing as Saturday Night Live. So I just thought this would be an amazing place to work. And I was in some classes and I auditioned, and George Wendt from Cheers and I were hired the same day. I'm trying to think who else. Shelley Long and I were in the company together. I never worked with John Belushi, but Jim Belushi and I were in the company for a while. So it's a while back. But it's kind of like it's like a fraternity or like the mafia. Once you're a part of it, you're always a part of it that connects you to it.
You know, I have a memory when I have two sons when they were, I don't know how old they were. We were in New York, and we went to a club somewhere. I think they were maybe 12 and 13. And it was John Belushi, and it was that group, those guys. This was before Saturday Night Live, and they were working that club. And I have a wonderful memory of, having a first shot of seeing those guys. I see another question about, are you willing to talk about what your new play, the play that you're working on now, what it's about?
Okay, I'll tell you a little bit. A few years ago, there was I think on the Pulitzer Prize, a play called Red about Mark Rothko. Have you?
Oh, yeah, sure. We thought about doing it, as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
I think what stopped me was the nightly painting of the painting.
Yeah. So John Logan, who wrote that play, is an old buddy of mine, because he was also part of the what we call the Playwrights Ensemble at Victory Gardens. And he talked about being at the Tate London and seeing this exhibit. And coincidentally, I had seen that same exhibit. So I called John. I said, how did you get a play out of this? I walked around that exhibit. I got nothing. So just so happens, a couple of years ago, I was in New York, and at the Jewish Museum in New York, there was an exhibit about Mark Chagall.
Oh, I saw that.
And the Chagall Lazinski. And that just fascinated me. And I don't think anybody's ever written a play about Mark Chagall. So that's what I'm doing.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm interested.
Oh,
I'm
good.
in.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's interesting. I saw that exhibit. I was moved by it.
Yeah.
I'm also surprised that there haven't been plays about his life and career, or some aspect of his life and career.
You know, he had such I'm focusing on just that particular period of his life. But he had such a long life, and he was one of the most famous artists of the 20th century.
Oh yeah, and Jewish.
Also, that's, yeah.
Also Jewish. I didn't realize that he had done. I'm trying to remember what I saw when I went to the Jewish Museum to see that exhibit, because there were sets. They weren't his, I guess.
Right.
There were sets that were done for his plays that he had written or taken from his stories.
Yeah, he did do some sets.
Oh, he did do sets and backdrops.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's another question.
Mhm.
Have you read any good books lately? Have you seen any good films lately?
I just, because of my background in Second City and comedy, one of my idols was Mike Nichols, and there's a new biography about him that came out just very recently.
I just read it.
So I would certainly recommend that. And now a new biography about Tom Stoppard, one of my favorite playwrights, has just come out.
You know, this is really interesting because a box came from Amazon today, and my older son sent me that Tom Stoppard book.
Oh, great. Yeah, I haven't started that yet, but the
I haven't started it yet, no.
Yeah, Mike Nichols bio by Mark Harris is
Oh, it's wonderful.
really well done.
It was wonderful for me because it was full of references to people I either knew or had crossed paths with earlier in New York, including Mike Nichols, who came to Buffalo one night to see Shakespeare in the Park.
Oh,
and
wow.
We sat on the hill together because I had done a very modern adaptation of Two Gentlemen of Verona, and he was interested in the music. And then he did part of it as a sort of cabaret in New York eventually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was really neat. It was neat to meet him. And he wasn't, as a matter of fact, he wasn't feeling well that night, but he sat and then he went backstage afterwards, talked to all of the actors, he was quite a guy.
Yeah.
I think I see another question. Hold on a second, Jim. You mentioned, are you currently working with the new Sarasota Jewish Theater? The question was, are you currently working with the new Sarasota Jewish Theater?
Yeah, I mentioned the Sarasota Jewish Theater because they're doing door to door.
From door to door, yeah.
I think I see the questions were scrolling down. Let's see. Okay. Oh, here's an interesting question. What's your new screenplay about? Why is it a screenplay and not a stage play? Well, that's an interesting question. Like many people, I'm a big fan of Stephen Sondheim, and he wrote a couple of books. And the very first line in his very first book about being a writer in the theater is content dictates form. So I love working in the theater, and most of the work I've done has been in the theater. Bo Jess actually I first envisioned as a screenplay. So the
really?
Was to write it as a play and set it in Sarah's apartment. And then, of course, when I came up with the idea for Just a Second, I knew I wanted to write another play with the Goldman family, although with the focus being on Joel instead of Sarah. The challenge there was I want to do a play about Joel, but still put it in Sarah's apartment. So that was a challenge. So some things just can't be done on stage and need to be screenplays. That's the way I feel. Some people I write plays now that seem cinematic to me, and I'm just an old-fashioned guy, and I like plays.
It's interesting for a theater like ours. Inevitably, I'm looking for plays where the technical requirements aren't great. One apartment is ideal, or a single setting, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we call that the Aristotelian unities a
Yeah,
play
there
should
you
take
go.
place in one place over one particular amount of time.
Right, absolutely. And that works best. It works best for us. Earlier this season, we did a new play by a Canadian playwright called Bar Mitzvah Boy. I don't know if you've heard anything about it. An interesting play about a middle-aged man who has
Right.
never been bar mitzvahed, and because his grandson is being bar mitzvahed, he feels he should get bar mitzvahed. So it's really about his relationship to this female rabbi who he runs into. So it was a two-character play set mostly in the rabbi's office. And that worked very well. And I think the next play we're going to do is a play called Exquisite Potential. I don't know if you know it, but it's a play about a Jewish couple who have a child, and they have come to believe that the child is the Messiah.
Oh, well, my mother believed that. Don't all mothers believe that?
I think all Jewish mothers believe that. So it's an interesting take because they come to a rabbi and that's what he says. Well, of course you think he's the Messiah. Of course he's the Messiah. And so it has the boy grows up and begins doing things that are messianic in a way. So it's an interesting play. We have also had a relationship with a playwright named Alice Cohen. I don't know if you know her. I read a memoir that she wrote that Oprah Winfrey had on her list of outstanding books, and really it was about her experience as an older woman who discovers because she's having some pains and she has an MRI and she's told that she's pregnant.
Oh, okay.
Late in life. And the play follows that. And so she's done another play on, sort of with the same character that we've done as well. Hold on a second, Jim. I see another question popping up here. Oh, somebody asked what books you've been reading during the quarantine, but you've talked about that already.
Yeah. I haven't started the Tom Stoppard biography, but do you know his story that he got connected to his Jewish roots later in life?
Yes, I do know that. I know that.
And have you read about the play that he wrote, Leopoldstadt?
No.
So Tom Stoppard, because he's Tom Stoppard and can do it whatever he wants, he wrote a play that deals with Jewish life in Vienna before and during and after the war. And it's called Leopoldstadt. And in fact, was running at the National Theater when the shutdown happened. But I think it's a cast of like 26.
Oh, of course.
Because he's Tom Stoppard, he can do that if he wants to.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting play. He, in fact, there's a scene in his play where there's a Seder. And I went, anybody who writes a play about Jews,
it has to be a Seder.
Or something with some ritual.
Yeah, it's the ritual aspect, I think, that interests people. I'd love the fact that, Steve Vaughn, who directed this current version of your play, loves the ritual idea. He's not Jewish, but he loves the Seder. He wishes there were more of it in the play. Well, so be it. We'll have to find a more ritualistic play for him. Hold on, I see there's another question. Oh, it just refers to what you're working on now. Why a screenplay and not a stage play? Mm-hmm. Which I think you've referred to, but we would be interested in it as a play version. Okay. I mean, I wish you all success with it in Hollywood.
You mentioned the thing about ritual, and from a playwright standpoint, something that we often do is take ritual and play with it, and deconstruct it. When I first wrote Beau Jest and did some early readings of it, more than a couple of people said, Jim, you got people just sitting around the table for this whole scene, just doing a Seder. Nobody's going to be interested in that. And then, of course,
it's a wonderful scene.
Sometimes they said, well, okay, trust me, or I was trusting myself that it would play because, yes, we're going through the ritual of the Seder, but within that, there's a lot of things happening between the characters and the relationships. So that's why the audience stays interested in it.
Yeah, it's an interesting moment too, and it's interesting that, of course, that you've given the boy, the actor,
Yeah, Bob.
an experience with Fiddler on the Roof, and with Cabaret, so he has some Jewishness in him.
Yes, and he worked at Second City, so he knows how to improvise, fortunately.
Right, exactly, which is terrific. Hold on one more second. I guess we're pretty much close to the time that we've been allotted. So it's been delightful talking to you, Jim, and I hope that you will see our video version of BoJet. I don't think it's quite up yet. It will be within a couple of days, and we will send you a link. So this is the thing I love about it. I have been beginning our live shows by asking the audience to put their munchies away and so on, because it's a small theater. So I keep doing that when I'm introducing the video version. But it's nice that people everywhere are seeing these things. I think this is really the extraordinary thing about theater in theater in the plague. Suddenly we find new audiences everywhere that are interested in our work. So I'm looking forward to seeing this version. I haven't seen it yet either, although I know all the members of this cast, but I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you like it.
Great. I'm looking forward to it too. I'm sure I will.
So I'm looking forward to your next the play that you're working on, the screenplay that you're working on, and maybe we can chat at that time. So thanks a lot, Jim. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for setting this up. It's been a pleasure for me.
So long, Jim. It's been good to see you.
Be well, everyone. Thanks.
You too.